Hello, you've reached S.J. Thomason with Christian-Apologist.com. You will note that I came upon this rather ridiculous tweet earlier today. It says, see my debate with her. I destroyed her sources on this, destroyed them. She misrepresented or drew the exact opposite conclusions from a number of works. Here are Nick's specific claims from his blog. Failure to account for covariance or the intent of the authors. These are studies where, while they found a correlation between religion and health, found that it was not religion per se that accounted for it, and counseled against these conclusions or found the correlation in a group far narrower than SJ portrays. Misrepresentation. These are studies which were misrepresented, such as studies of extrinsic motivation either being suggested or outright explained as intrinsic ones. And his third point states that I had a contradiction. These are studies where the conclusions were counter to the intent or the article, and in the worst cases, explicitly contradicting the claim she was using them to support. Is that the case? Do you believe that? Is that something that seems reasonable? Well, how do we determine that? Why don't we go back and we'll take a look at the studies themselves. I recently debated Nick on the merits of religion and whether it is needed in modern society. I had researched findings from a variety of studies, including meta-analytic studies. Meta-analytic studies are studies that analyze the empirical results from other studies on the same variable to determine overall effect sizes. They are therefore regarded as superior to other studies because results mitigate any biases or non-replicable results, which are sometimes found in primary studies. The atheist I debated is called Nick Lamar Suter, the same person who just tweeted that information. He collected the studies I had posted on my blog on the health benefits of religiosity and atheism and overemphasized a few points where the authors offered opinions on their findings along with limitations. You can access my article at Christian-Apologist.com. Rather than capitalize on such musings or attempt to generalize the diverse results from various primary studies in a non-empirical way, the present video lists the abstracts from the meta-analytic studies I have found on the health associates of religiosity. Abstracts present the results of each study in a concise manner, eliminating randomness and authors' unsupported assertions in their discussions and limitations sections. The results overall support the health benefits of religiosity. The first study I'll list the abstract from is from Baer and Wright, 2001, in the Journal of Research in Crime and Delinquency. They state, do religious beliefs and behaviors deter criminal behavior? The existing evidence surrounding the effect of religion on crime is varied, contested, and inconclusive, and currently no persuasive answer exists as to the empirical relationship between religion and crime. In this article, the authors address this controversial issue with a meta-analysis of 60 previous studies on two questions. What is the direction and magnitude of the effect of religion on crime? And two, why have previous studies varied in their estimation of this effect? The results of the meta-analysis show that religious beliefs and behaviors exert a moderate deterrent effect on individuals' criminal behavior. Furthermore, previous studies have systematically varied in their estimation of the religion on crime effect due to differences in both their conceptual and methodological approaches. The second meta-analysis is from Janes, 2002, in Education and Urban Society. Janes states, using meta-analysis, this study sought to determine the effects of religious schooling and personal religious commitment on African American and Hispanic students' academic achievement. The results indicate that religious schooling and religious commitment each have a positive effect on academic achievement and school-related behavior. In the case of religious schooling, the effect sizes that emerge for religious schooling tend to be larger for older children. The effect sizes for religious schooling were even larger for school-related behavior than they were for academic achievement. The significance of these results is discussed. The third study comes from Smith and McCullough and Pohl in 2003 out of Psychological Bulletin. Psychological Bulletin is one of the most well-respected journals that's out there. The authors present a correction notice up front, but then midway down the abstract, it says, the association between religiousness and depressive symptoms was examined with meta-analytic methods across 147 independent investigations with an N of 98,975. Across all studies, the correlation between religiousness and depressive symptoms was negative 0.094, indicated that greater religiousness is mildly associated with fewer symptoms. The results were not moderated by gender, age, or ethnicity, but the religiousness depression association was stronger in studies involving people who were undergoing stress due to recent life events. The results were also moderated by the type of measure of religiousness used in the study, with extrinsic religious orientation and negative religious coping. Example, avoiding difficulties through religious activities, blaming God for the difficulties, associated with higher levels of depressive symptoms, the opposite direction of the overall findings. In other words, when Nick claims that the extrinsic religiosity was the one that was actually making an impact, it was making an impact in a negative way, contrary to what Nick stated. Wu, Wang, and Jia in 2015 in PLOS One came out with these results. Quote, suicide is a major public health concern and a leading cause of death around the world. How religion influences the risk of completed suicide in different settings across the world requires clarification in order to best inform suicide prevention strategies. A meta-analysis using research results from PubMed and Web of Science databases was conducted following PRISMA protocol and using the keywords religion or religious or religiosity or spiritual or spirituality plus suicide or suicidality or suicide attempt. Random and fixed effect models were used to generate pooled odds ratios and I-squared values. Sub-analyses were conducted among the following categories: young age, less than 45 years old; older age, greater than or equal to 45 years old; Western culture, Eastern culture, and religious homogeneity. 9 studies that altogether evaluated 2,339 suicide cases and 5,252 comparison participants met all selection criteria and were included in the meta-analysis. The meta-analysis suggested an overall protective effect of religiosity from completed suicide with a pooled odds ratio of 0.38, 95% confidence interval, and an I-squared heterogeneity of 91%. Sub-analyses similarly revealed significant protective effects for studies performed in Western cultures and among older populations. High heterogeneity of our meta-analysis was attributed to 3 studies in which the methods varied from the other 6. So the authors concluded, religion plays a protective role against suicide in a majority of settings where suicide research is conducted. However, this effect varies based on the cultural and religious context. Therefore, public health professionals need to strongly consider the current social and religious atmosphere of a given population when designing suicide prevention strategies. Speaking from the Western context, it appears that it's most valid in our culture. Thank you so much for taking a listen to this. I really appreciate that you came by. I hope when you review the article from the Atheist Codex, Nick Suter, you realize that what he is saying is actually completely incorrect. Goodbye.